Military weapons and equipment have greatly changed over the years. In 15th century Korea, military personnel preferred a multiple rocket launcher and organ gun, known as the hwasha, or wake. The rocket launcher could fire 1 or 200 rocket-powered arrows, while the organ gun could fire several dozen iron-headed arrows out of gun barrels. If you saw the hwasha in your area, it was time to run. The weapon was designed to cause damage, and you didn't want to be located anywhere near its target. Used in the defense of the Korean peninsula against the Japanese, the hwasha was primarily helpful towards the end of the 15th century. Many East Asian historians believe the technological weapon was a crucial aiding device during the war. What was involved in the weapon? How was it used? You can see hwashas today in Korean museums and national parks, but you might want to learn something about their use before you make your visit. Birth of the hwasha. Historians believe the hwasha was invented about 200 years prior to when it was first implemented in Korea during the 15th century. It's unclear the exact day when the weapon was first invented, but the hwasha was likely developed around the same time when gunpowder was first manufactured in Korea, approximately by the 14th century. People can credit Ko Museon for first developing a version of gunpowder. He, along with his son, Haesun Museon, advanced the production of gunpowder, and other people would do their best to replicate their efforts. It's believed the hwasha was originally used as a defensive weapon. By the middle of the 15th century, during the Joseon dynasty, the weapon was manufactured in bulk by King Munjong so Korea could protect its border defenses against the opposing Japanese military. King Munjong ordered that the weapon be advanced to fire 200 projectiles at once. He also wanted the ammunition to be improved. Whatever he wanted, it was delivered. The hwasha greatly changed the way military fighters and warriors operated their battles. It was one of the first rocket launchers, consisting of a two-wheeled cart that was mounted on a board with several holes carved into the board. The holes were filled with Sinjijeon machine arrows about 1.1 meters in length that were propelled by a paper tube filled with gunpowder, and attached to the shaft of each arrow. The Sinjijeon was the earliest form of a rocket. When launched, they could travel up to 2,000 meters, which is over a mile. This was just the 15th century. It might be hard to believe there was a weapon of this kind in the 15th century, but the Koreans were very skilled. You wouldn't want to underestimate their talents. They accomplished greatness, even if most of us have never heard of the hwasha. But you probably have seen a more modern device that resembles the ancient war weapon. The engineers designed the hwashas to be different than any other weapons you might have seen, especially the cannons and mortars used in Western warfare during the Middle Ages and the 16th century. These weapons needed heavy iron balls, but not hwashas. Engineers designed the Sinjijeon class projectiles, small arrows, specifically for the hwashas, and their thin, light design made the hwashas effective, easily maneuverable weapons. However wonderful this design might seem, engineers still faced several challenges with the weapon. The trajectory was fairly flat, and operators had to increase the elevation while firing the weapon to maximize its range. Harsh weather conditions, including wind, humidity, and rain, limited the weapon's striking distance to about 100 meters away. By 1592, Korea felt intensely threatened by the Japanese. The opposing Japanese forces invaded the country, launched by Japan's great warrior Toyotomi Hideyoshi. He wanted to conquer the Korean peninsula on his way to invading China. At this point, Korea felt mostly defenseless against these harsh attacks during what we know today as the Imjin Wars, lasting from 1592 to 1598. Japan occupied the Korean peninsula and captured several cities and fortresses. It seemed there was nothing Korea could do to stand a chance against the mighty Japanese forces. However, that's when the military decided hwashas would be their best tool to defend their country against the invasions. Hwashas were placed in fortresses and citadels, and military leaders recognized the weapon as a national defense form against the Japanese raiders. The weapon was incredibly valuable and powerful in battles, including in the famous Battle of Hangzhou. Korea's greatest victory. Japan dominated the Imjin Wars, capturing the Korean peninsula. However, one of Korea's greatest victories during the war was the Battle of Hangju on February 12, 1593. Historians have reported that the battle involved 3,000 Korean soldiers, who defended a hilltop fortress against 30,000 Japanese soldiers. Looking at these numbers, it seems the Koreans would have been unable to defeat the Japanese. But despite these odds, the Koreans were victorious and delivered a heavy blow to the Japanese morale thanks to the usage of washes. Korean soldiers used 40 washes mounted on the outer walls of their fortress. The Japanese tried to assault the fortress 9 times, but they were unable to defeat the Koreans and their washes. This was a victory for the Koreans. Advantages of the Hwasha. Washes fired arrows which were thin and light, making it an easy-to-maneuver siege weapon. A barrage of arrows from the Hwasha can completely and easily pierce through a soldier in full armor and shield. Because of the large numbers of arrows fired from Hwashas and the widespread damage of its attack, a dense formation presented an ideal target for Hwashas. Retirement of the Hwasha. There was no doubt that the Hwasha was an important weapon of war for the Koreans. It helped protect the country and was used offensively in sea-to-land attacks and in naval warfare during major battles of the Imjin Wars. But the weapon couldn't be used forever. The device eventually became obsolete due to the use of other war machines. However, the Hwasha is still regarded as one of the most important military weapons in Korean history. It is featured in popular culture, mostly because it helped Korea during the Battle of Hangju. The Hwasha has sometimes been assembled and tested in modern times, including in a 2008 episode of the popular science entertainment program, Mythbusters. The Mythbusters, Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman, tested the rocket launcher in 3 parts. This confirmed the supposed myth that the Hwasha actually could launch and fire 200 arrows at once. It might not seem possible that a device from the 15th century could operate like that, but just because it was created in ancient times doesn't mean the Koreans were incapable of accomplishing greatness. Maybe you have never heard of the Hwasha before. That's okay. There are many other military war weapons that are unheard of in popular culture. They look like they were props on Game of Thrones, but trust us, they were real, and they helped soldiers combat in some of their more crucial battles. For example, ancient China used flamethrowers, or fire lances, during the 10th century. The spears were attached to bamboo tubes that could shoot a burst of flame a few feet away. Some were adjusted to shoot lead pellets, while others could release a burst of poisonous gas and arrows. The ancient Greek and Roman empires preferred a giant crossbow device, known as a bow arqueballista. The arms of the bow didn't bend like a normal crossbow. Instead, they were solid wood beams mounted between twisted skeins of rope. When a soldier turned a lever, the ends of the arms rotated towards the back of the device, twisting the ropes to create enough force to cause severe damage. The Chinese perfected this device during the Tang dynasty, adding 3 bows. This increased the power, making the ballista fire an iron bolt up to 1,100 meters away, over 3/4 of a mile. Military weapons have evolved throughout time. It's important for war historians to study these ancient devices in order to know what worked in the past. Who knows? Perhaps the Hwasha could still be influential in today's military operations.